So your dragon has 3 chromosomes. Then you have either an X or a Y, or you have both. You're gonna have your dragon's gonna have 2 chromosomes for each chromosome because it's diploid. 2 chromosomes. Each of those chromosomes are gonna have different genes on them, different alleles, same genes, different alleles. So chromosome 1 are gonna have the same genes, chromosome 2 are gonna have the same genes, 3 of the same genes, and then either there's an X or a Y. I misdrew this, so let me make this clearer. Either you're going to have an X, or in this case, you're going to have an X and a Y. Is that clear? So you're going to have 2 sheets. You're going to have to cut your chromosomes out, and you're going to have 2 sheets. You have 2 number 1s, you have 2 number 2s, you have 2 number 3s, and you either have an X and an X, or an X and a Y. Now, unfortunately, I made a mistake, and I put a letter on the Y. There should be no letter on the Y. I either put a big F or a little f on the Y. Don't do that. Get rid of that. As soon as if you have a dragon that's a male, if your dragon's a male, it has a Y and there's a letter on it, scratch it out. There is no letter on the male. These are 2 different sets of genes. You don't have the same genes on the X that you do the Y. Is that clear? So if you have a gene on the X, in this case it's either a big F or a little f, that's only on the X, it's not on the Y. Okay? All right. On this chromosome, you're going to see something that looks like this. ... E, ... H, ... S. Lowercase or uppercase. It's one of the 2. You have on chromosome 2, you'll see this is an L, lowercase l. And then G, obviously it's uppercase. And then R, obviously lowercase. And then T. You have 2 of them. So the other gene, the other chromosome might be something that looks like this. I'm literally copying this off of what is in front of me. All right. So that's what you have. That's your dragon. Your partner's dragon is going to have something similar. They're going to have their own genetic combination. This is the genotype. This here. The genotype for this dragon, for chromosome 1, the genotype for this dragon is big N, little n. Big E, big H, little h, big S, big S. Do you see that? Big N, little n, big E, big H, little h, big S, big S. That is the genotype for chromosome 1. Chromosome 2 then would be whatever 2 is, and 3, whatever 3 is. And then the 4th chromosome, which is the sex chromosomes, would either be X, and either big F or little f, and then Y. And you'll read, in your reading, there's instructions of what to do if you have a male, and what does it mean if you have a female. Now, what does this translate into? This is the genotype. Is this, let me ask you right now, since this is stuff a lot of you had in middle school, so let me ask you, is this heterozygous or homozygous? Heterozygous, correct, because there's 2, it's big N, little n, they're different. Is this homozygous or dominant, heterozygous or homozygous recessive? Homozygous dominant.
Yeah, homozygous because it's the same.
That's right. You got it. That's right. And why do I say dominant?
Because they're the same.
That's right.
They're both capital.
That's right. You got it. They're both capital. Excellent. So because they're both capital, they're dominant. So what does it mean to be dominant? That's really the question. What does it mean to be dominant? Let me be very clear on this, okay? To be dominant means that's what shows up. So, for instance, this is genotype. So if we're looking at any particular trait, N, and you'll see if you look at when you look at your project, there's a chart, there's a table that tells you what the letters mean. N is long neck. I think it's N is long neck, yeah. Follow the chart. And little n is short neck. Now the questions that I've been asked today is, okay, well what does it mean then? What does it mean if I have big N, little n? Do I have a long neck or a short neck? If you have the dominant form, that's what shows up. So this would be a long neck. This would be a long neck, heterozygous individual. So they have the gene for the short neck, but the short neck doesn't show up because you have the long neck. That's what it means to be dominant. If the gene is there, if that version, this big N, means that if you have this chromosome with this big N, that's what shows up. Are we clear on that? Does that make sense? Because there's two of every gene. You see that? There's a big N and a little n. Some of you might have little n, little n. Some of you might have a short neck because you have two little n's. See, if you have two little n's, is you have short neck, you have no choice. If you have a big N and a little n, then you have the long neck. If you have a big N, what do you have? Long neck. If the big N is there, then you have the phenotype. This is what's called the phenotype. That's what you see. That's what you look at. It's either long or short, blue or red, whatever. Are we clear? Each of these genes that you see on all these chromosomes, when you get them, each of these letters represent a different trait. Eye color, length, horn or no horn, spikes or no spikes. All right. Now, once you figure out what your genotype is, you're going to have these, you're going to cut these out, okay? You're going to fill out that chart. That's what you're doing today. Now that you have your genotype, now you're going to come up and you're going to start to make your dragon. You have a sheet, and I'm going to pull it up on this screen because I don't think I have it on my iPad. So let me switch over to the computer. Here we go. So when we're looking, it's NEHS. At the Dragon Genetics work, you have these papers. You see this chart here? So when we're looking at this chart, let's go scroll up. So you have this chart. That's what the chart that's going to tell you the trait that goes with the genotype, phenotype. You're going to answer these questions. There's 6 dominant traits. You have to say what those dominant traits are. Here's a recessive trait, list of 6 recessive traits. Then they ask you for your genetic code. You have your genetic code in the chromosomes that I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you your genetic chromosomes. You're going to cut those chromosomes out. Is that clear? And you're going to have these chromosomes, they're going to be oval. And there's going to be 2 ovals there. And they're going to be face down. Once you're done, once you've written everything down and filled out these data tables that say genotype, whether it's homozygous or heterozygous, whether that's, what phenotype does it have, is it long or short? And you're going to do that for eye color, horns, spikes, tail, length, body color, all that. Once you have all those charts filled out, everything's filled out, you have to make a decision on which parts. Do you have this dragon head without freckles? Do you have this dragon head with freckles? You have to make that decision. Is your dragon body color yellow or whatever the body color is? I forget what the body color traits are. You can look it up. It's right here. It says, let's look it up. It says body color green, or is it gray? I'm going to suggest you color it in first. So once you color it in, you're going to cut it out, and then you're going to take it, either paste it or staple it, whatever it takes. You're going to put your dragon together over here on this page. Does that make sense? Yes. I will have already paired you up. I will have chosen who you're paired with. You're going to take your dragon and you're going to mate it with somebody else's dragon. Does that make sense? Like a dog breeder or horse breeder or a cattleman would do. Does that make sense? Now, what that means is you're going to take your dragon that has 2 possibilities. Remember, you can have big N, big E, little e, and big H, and then the other chromosome could be, there's no big E there, sorry. I forget what's the letter. Let me go back for a second. So NEHS. So NEHS or NEHS. So when you mate your dragons, if you give your baby dragon this chromosome, then you're giving that baby a big N, a big E, a big H, and a big S. If you give the dragon this chromosome, then you're giving that baby dragon a little N, little E, big H, big S. So what you do is you have these flipped over on, the way you do it is you have these on the table, flipped over so you can't see the letters. Then you mix them up, and then you randomly give one of those two chromosomes to the pool, the gene pool. And your partner, whoever that is, obviously if you have a male dragon, you're going to have a female individual or whatever. Say that again? Huh?
No, go ahead.
So if you have a male dragon, you want a female. If you have a female, you want a male. So they're also going to have their two chromosomes, and they're going to have a little, whatever their genotype is. And you're going to take, and they're going to have it, so they're going to be sitting next to you. They've already made their dragons at this stage. They have the chromosomes down. This is for chromosome 1, but you can do this for all 4 chromosomes. And you're going to have them flipped over, you're going to mix them up. You're going to randomly choose which one of these two you're going to give. So let's say you give this one over here to this, and then that one's the one you give over here. So now you have 2 new chromosomes. One came from dad, and one came from mom. They're both chromosome number 1. Does that make sense? When you flip these over, they're going to have a genetic code. Maybe dad gave little n, little e, big H, big S, and mom gave big N, big E, little h, big S. So now you have a whole new genotype. Does that make sense? Now you have a whole new genotype, you have a whole new dragon. That's what makes a new individual. What you see here is the makings of a new person. In this case, a new dragon. So this is a new dragon with a new genotype. So you have to figure all that out. You have a whole new set of characteristics you have to color and cut out. So you're making a new dragon. That's your progeny. Now there is one mistake, I have to say, there's a second mistake, and let me flip back over to the computer to show you. You have, for the baby dragon, you see making the baby dragon, you're going to choose to put what genes do you go for length. For the gene, it depends on the neck length, it depends on the genes that the mother gave and what genes did the father give. Which chromosome did you add to the pool, right? So you do that for eye color, horn, spikes, and you write that answer here. You do that here, that's chromosome 1, 2, 3, and for the sex chromosome. Is it male or female? Is it X or Y? If you have XY or XX, and does it have a big F or a little f? Now here's the problem. When I photocopied this portion on the back of this. So you're going to have to take these charts that have the data table for your baby dragon, and you're going to have to copy that data table here on the back of this page so that you can cut this out and glue it or staple it onto this page. Does that make sense? How am I going to grade you? I'm going to look at your genotype. I'm going to clearly look at your genotype. If your genotype does not match your dragon, if you have the genotype for no horns and your dragon has horns, you failed. You just proved that you don't know what you're doing. Does that make sense? If your dragon, if your genotype says it's you have a red dragon and you drew a green dragon rather, and you colored it a gray dragon, you failed, right? So your objective is to prove to me that you understand what it doesn't mean when I have big N, little s, you know, do I understand that the genotype makes a specific phenotype? You have to prove it by showing it that you understand that what your dragon's genotype and your dragon's phenotype match, and that your baby's genetic code matches. And then the last thing I'm looking for is when you made that baby, if you had little n, and your partner had big N, is there any way that your baby dragon could have big N, big N. Let me show you here. Let me be clear. If you tell me that you had something like this, and that's not correctly drawn, that you gave a chromosome that was little n, and your dragon was big N, little n, and your partner's dragon had little n, and they gave a little n, and you gave a big N. If you tell me that you combine these two and you got big N, was that possible?
No.
And so if you do that, if you make that mistake, that's also a fail. So really, there's only 2 grades you're going to get here. Either you're passing with an A or you're failing it. So I'm looking for these a really basic understanding that the genotype you're putting together matches the phenotype that you're putting together. If you can't do that, then you're a no-go on this. We're going to have to come up with an alternative assessment for you. Are you clear on this? On what your goals are? Do I have any questions? All right, so I'm going to partner you up, and I'm going to give you the necessary chromosomes for you to do this activity. When you're sitting there working, I need you to pull out your flip cards, put them on the desk next to you, along with your data sheets, your mitosis, meiosis worksheets. And I need them there as well so I can grade those. I'll put those grades in the grade book. I'll come around and do that now while you're working on that. If you don't have it, that's okay. I don't need any excuses. It's okay. I'm just going to you're going to get a bad grade, but work on the next assignment because you don't want. Let's assume you got a bad grade on this assignment. You don't want that bad grade to impact what's happening today. Is that clear? Because by tomorrow, I will be grading these tomorrow. All right, so let's get this done.